Well, Mark, Rudak, here we are, episode 54, Heart for Excellence. And it's kind of neat because we get to talk to Gordy Bunch this afternoon, a little bit about life struggles and how we overcome it and how he overcame stuff. So this is kind of a treat for me because I came on to TWFG. Gordy is the CEO of TWFG and chairman on the Woodlands Township.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an opportunity because something you and I discussed behind your back, Gordy, was we were both amazed that you actually took time to meet with us.
Yeah. Heart for Excellence. Who? What?
Yeah, or just even as individuals, when you met Marek about CS1, what he was pursuing.
Yeah, in fact, I sent an email on Sunday, like 8:20, and I thought, well, that'll be the end of it. And then, like 8:30, I got the email back from Gordy. So, wow, thank you. That especially for a struggling new entrepreneur, to have somebody of your stature at least reply to email, that's a lot.
Yeah, no, my pleasure.
Yeah, and then through Terry, we met after a Vail keynote, and we started chit-chatting.
Yep.
And I was like, man, what a great organization. So I'm honored to be a part of this. And looking forward just to have this conversation. But we were talking a little bit earlier about some of the struggles and things we go through in life. And how easy it is for us to forget about those struggles when we reach success. And I would think that most people would look at you as we do. We go, okay, successful. And we don't really appreciate the struggles that a person goes through to get to where they are. And then even maybe just as impressive or more impressive, how you actually still take time to meet with people that really we can't add anything to who you are or what you're doing. You really can't get anything from us. And yet you give back to the community, such as meeting with Marek and I, which is pretty astounding in and of itself because we know you've got a lot on your plate. But if you could take some time and maybe talk about some of the struggles, maybe keying on one of the biggest struggles you went through, how you overcame it and what it looked like, we would love to hear about that.
Sure. Well, I think, one, I always get something out of talking to anybody. I mean, it may not be apparent that, there's value in me spending time with folks that may not on the surface have any ability to provide me something, but I get something out of every conversation. So I'm not doing it selflessly. I'm actually doing it as part of giving back because there were people that met with me when I wasn't worthy of their time, or perceived that I wasn't worthy.
We understand. No offense taken here.
So it's interesting. Actually, the podcast I did with Terry, somebody grabbed it and slapped it on one of our websites, and I actually watched my own podcast, and I was like, well, you know what? That's pretty good, solid advice. And so inadvertently, Terry's podcast, actually, me watching it, I actually took my own advice and actually took action on some things that I was being a little bit flaky on.
Right.
And so, there's always good that comes out of these things. Yeah. And, when we talk about struggling, the business that we have, it was built from scratch.
Yeah.
But it was, built out of frustration, but also born from some negative working experiences. And so the first insurance business I built was actually stolen from us. My wife and I built it. I started it. She joined me. She was, 7 months pregnant with our first son. And the company that we were working with kept reducing our revenues. And, it was pretty offensive. So we met with the CEO and the CFO and said, look, this doesn't work for our family.
Yeah.
You can't expect both of us to work with you and then continually reduce our revenues while we're trying to raise a family. So they agreed to move the portfolio from me and assign it to Michelle, and I needed to go get a full-time job in order to supplement the revenue loss that they were planning for us. It's a very one-way deal. They put Michelle through all the training required at their offices in order for her to be qualified to take it over. When we submitted the transfer agreement, they just stopped paying us. And so here my pregnant wife works for free, takes on additional licensing and exams that they approved her to do, and the business that we built together was stolen from us.
Wow.
That was a low point from a business standpoint, and it also had a domino impact on our relationship because she's on the other side of that coin, now left with just being pregnant, having worked to obtain and the ability to retain our business, and has basically been rejected out of hand by an organization and not compensated for her time. Well, I moved on and had a successful career elsewhere.
So like with Heart for Excellence, we talk about the issues of the heart, right? And we have these experiences in life that you're describing. This happened, here's how I responded. But what we don't talk about a lot in this culture, in this society, what's going on in my heart during this time?
Yeah.
I can get resentful, I can get angry, and I can get bitter. What did that look like in your heart, if you can recall back then? What's going on in your heart at that time, other than I'm going to build like the largest or the 8th largest privately owned brokerage in Showdown? But how did you handle it then?
Well, I mean, it was very infuriating, right? Because one, I started it from scratch, so it wasn't like they were taking something back that was given to me. They were taking something back
you earned
that not only I earned, I created.
Yeah,
and it wasn't just me, because eventually my wife joined and helped us make it better and expand it. But they essentially ripped away her heart for this business and this industry. It ruined her on insurance as a profession and as a business. It angered me, and to your point, sure, the thoughts are, I'll show you, right, what a mistake that they had made. And we went through litigation, and
it got to that point. Wow.
Well, if you steal someone's entire livelihood, and they have told you that it was your equity, that's what we did. Now, that dragged out for a long time. I had a non-compete in my business contract, and even though they violated our contract, we honored our side of that coin. So I sat my non-compete out working elsewhere. And then when my non-compete was up, I created this company. And so this company started out as a landing pad for others who would be mistreated by other people. And in the first month of starting this company, that same company started taking adverse action against others. I just happened to be the first one it happened to because I called them out up front, and they basically took on opportunity as I was providing them the transfer to my wife. They used that as an opportunity to get rid of us early.
Yeah.
But those reduced revenues started trickling through, and they started taking a similar action against my prior peers.
Wow.
And so I always looked at it as, okay, God, you allowed me to be thrown out the door first, so I can go lick my wounds and create something for the others that were going to get kicked out the door 2 years later, so they would have a place to land.
Wow.
And so in that first month, I got a call from somebody I used to work with saying, hey, you won't believe what just happened to me. I was like,
wow.
I think I
believe? It happened to me 2 years ago, and you knew that, but people don't realize that things that happen to others can happen to them too. And then as that started happening, we were in a position to pick these families up, and instead of them going through 2 years in the desert, they were immediately put back into business within a week.
Wow.
And so this company became a healing source for that destructive period of time.
And we want to talk more about that. But the old adage that we've all heard many times, that which doesn't kill me only serves to make me stronger. Does that have relevance to you in light of that experience back a number of years ago?
It did. As I was toting out my filing cabinets of my office I no longer needed, the message God gave me was, I made you stronger, you can handle this. And, you're not going, that's awesome, but I don't have the money now. But that didn't matter. That was the message that I received was, I made you stronger to take these hits, to get through these types of things. So you had to basically trust God that, He's got it.
So was that like just a one-time event, or did you kind of go? Was it like a conversation with God? I was going to kind of give us more color on that kind of the lowest of the
more
low.
difficult piece for me was, I was able to reestablish myself and be successful instantly elsewhere. My wife, being pregnant, was not able to do the same. So then, you have your first baby, and her life has materially changed differently. And my failure was to really be able to empathize from her perspective, and that's where things get out of whack, right? And everybody has that issue. We're all good at ourselves. We're not good at others.
Oh yeah.
And so I said, okay, God told me I'm stronger. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to go knock it out of the park while I'm over here. Give it all I got, because that's how I work. And I got success over here. And I didn't really figure out, okay, what does my wife need out of all this? Because, I transitioned from success to success, and I was able to fill that income void and provide for my family. I didn't realize that she had struggled with that whole thing as well. So,
I think we want to pick up that in the second episode that we're going to do. Is come back to marriage and like some of the struggles in there with business or just whatever, because it's really, our podcast isn't necessarily about business or all that stuff. It's just about a man's heart. So then what would be your advice or your input looking back at experience that you gleaned basically when we get screwed by another entity, and clearly we've been wronged.
Right.
It affects our heart. Like we get, and ultimately we get pissed is the expression I think we use, right?
To say politely.
Have you ever gone back to revisit that to go, man, did I ever forgive these guys? I've been wronged. Has that ever been an issue, or did you just move on like water off a duck's back and here you are today? Or did you actually process through that? Like, because when there's litigation, it gets ramped up and the intensity gets ramped up.
Right, and it's not like that's the only time that you ever have an issue.
Right.
Subsequent to that, we've had business partners abscond with sizable amounts of cash. We've had a real negative real estate transaction that basically devalued our own home.
So how do you deal with that stuff? Like, how do you process it? What I've learned is talking to a lot of guys in these podcasts in different arenas. Us guys, we tend to stuff a lot of this stuff. Like, it happens, I don't want to acknowledge it.
We go to the cave.
Right.
We press on, whatever, but we don't really deal with all the cruddy stuff that may be the byproducts of those negative emotions or feelings.
So
did you process it, or what do you do with it?
So, the first business loss, that took a lot longer to process because that was not something I ever anticipated having to experience. And my wife and I processed it separately, right? And, I was able to move faster through it than perhaps she was, but we were dealing with it from two different outcomes on the other side. Her outcome was I'm pregnant and I'm about to have my first baby, and my outcome is I'm making as much as I made before and I'm successful, and now I'm working for a larger company who's treating me better, and so okay, that didn't work out. Let the lawyers handle it. Eventually something may come of it, but in the meantime I got to work.
Yeah.
And as we went full circle with that issue and eventually got to the point where the litigation had become toxic.
Yeah.
Not like toxic because, the way they were treating us or the way we were treating them, but just toxic in its existence.
Yep.
And at some point in time, I remember saying, look, having this active litigation is just keeping this wound open.
Yeah.
And even though we were wronged and financially wronged substantially, let's just get rid of this.
Yeah.
And so we took a significantly lower settlement than the value of what was taken from us to eliminate it from our lives.
Right.
And I had won some awards from that company. A big old gaudy ring because I was one of their top people, and we went on a marriage retreat. And while we were doing this marriage retreat, I took that ring reminder of that negative experience and skipped it across Table Rock Lake up in Branson, Missouri. And it's sitting there somewhere at the bottom, and it was a tangible transfer of I had a physical reminder of that business. I was able to get rid of it. When we got rid of the litigation, some negativity started going away. And then when we were able to actually realize that we had two different experiences, right? We both owned the business together. We both worked in the business, but our experiences of how that turned out were
different angles,
completely different perspectives. My perspective was I saved us. I saw the shoe dropping, and I landed us on solid foundation. Yay, me, the hero.
The knight in shining armor.
From a financial perspective, that's absolutely what I did.
Yeah.
From an emotional perspective, I didn't do anything for her. I solved all my issues and the protective nature of how I felt a man is supposed to be. But for her, I was like, okay, we're good. I took care of my part. I didn't realize the emotional impact it had on her. The working without compensation, the feeling of rejection, the I'm pregnant and having a baby, postpartum depressions, all those things compounded. And to me, it's like, I saved us.
Yeah.
Why are we still...
What's the problem?
Arguing. Yeah. What's the problem, right? So my level of empathy and sensitivity really wasn't there. And I, we're talking about mid to late 20s now.
Yeah.
Emotionally not present. The provide and protect mode of my brain was 120% activated.
Yeah.
So, at that time period, I'm a rabid workaholic.
Yeah.
My goals in life are to succeed and show them what mistake they made and messing with us, and not necessarily how do I bind and bond my growing family.
Yeah. So we're going to address that in the second episode, but you said something I want to address. How much time do we got left?
We got 3 minutes.
Okay, so there's a verse in the Bible, Philippians says, forgetting what's behind and pressing on to what is ahead. Paul says that, right? Forgetting what's behind. When I read that verse and then I hear what you're saying, it sounds like that to me. There is stuff that happens to us in this life, and if we keep holding on to it, it keeps the wound open, as you put it. And it's very destructive in our own lives and in the lives of those involved with us relationally. Until we come to a point of going, man, I'm willing to settle for less because the value of what we're trying to get through litigation doesn't even compare to what I'm losing by keeping this thing open. And it sounds like that is what you concluded. Right. And then to the point where you took the gaudy ring and you skipped it across the water and let it sink. We hear about that. Things that we go through, write it down on a piece of paper, think about it, acknowledge it. It did happen. Right. But then, we put it in a fire. It's kind of like that. That's what it sounds like. Is that about right? And how did that work for you? Like, if I could be that frank to ask.
Yeah. Oh, it was very helpful. We had to go to counseling, too, because it wasn't until we went to counseling that I could ever hear her perspective. Yeah. Because, we try usually to solve everything on our own.
Logically.
And in my own capacity, I was ill-equipped to, one, listen or hear what was being said, because my natural reaction was to defend whatever I did, because I in my mind had saved the family from financial ruin, put us on solid foundation and footing, and even furthered us into the right direction. So I was very closed-minded to having that dialogue. It was a healing moment to get rid of the litigation, to get rid of the physical and tangible reminders. It did allow that to go away. And, have I ever called up and forgiven, the CEO, CFO for what they did? No. I still have a little pettiness in me.
There's still a scar there.
Well, when this company was larger than theirs in this state, we had a broker call them and ask them if they'd sell us the company. And made sure they knew it was us. Not my finest moments.
But still fun. How long after was it where you actually got to that point of just going, in a sense, I'm tossing it, I'm letting go, I'm dropping, or I'm going to settle for much less. What was the time frame?
It was probably 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we'll come back in the second episode, but during that time, it was a stress on the marriage.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's what we're going to hit on next episode, but this has been really good. Thank you for sharing all of that, and I'm looking forward to the next episodes. We kind of drill down even further into really personal relationships. So now we just talked about the professional relationships, and those are tough.
Yeah.
But to a large degree, even tougher is marriage relationships. So one that, we make this covenant with till death do us part in sickness and in health. That's even a tougher relationship in so many different ways, and we'll hit on that in the next episode.
Yep. So stay tuned, guys. God bless you guys, and talk to you soon.
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Bunch.
My pleasure again.
Awesome.